Hello everybody! Today, we're going to talk about THUN in World of Warcraft lore. If you want to learn more about anything I mentioned in the video, if I've done videos on them, links will be in the description. From the beginning, the primordial force of the Void has been trying to consume and twist reality into a realm of darkness. Entities formed within the Void, which worked to this end. The Void Lords. They watched the Titans and envied their power, and concluded in order to twist the universe into a realm of darkness, they needed to corrupt one of the Titans. Through tremendous effort, the Void Lords began seeping into the physical universe. Their goal was to infect a Titan before it had awakened, also known as World Souls. Some worlds in the universe contained sleeping Titans, but the Void Lords didn't know which ones, so they pooled their power together to create dark creatures and thrust them into the universe in random directions, hoping some would land on a world with a World Soul. They would corrupt worlds they landed on, whether they had a Titan in them or not. During Azeroth's primordial era, while the elementals still controlled the world, the old gods plummeted down from the sky. They slammed into the surface and embedded themselves across the world. They were mountains of black flesh, tentacles, and eyes. They worked to spread their corruption across the world and dug their tendrils into its crust, digging towards the heart of Azeroth, its World Soul. THUN, alongside the other old gods, Y'Shaarj, Yogg-Saron, and N'Zoth, dominated the land. Their holdings would become known as the Black Empire. The elemental lords that controlled Azeroth were furious, and for the first time ever, banded together against the old gods. Even with their amazing power, they could not bring down the Black Empire, because no matter how many Void servants that died, more would spawn from the old gods' flesh. By the end of the war, the old gods had enslaved the elemental lords, and the Black Empire, now unopposed, spread across Azeroth, making it a place of darkness and suffering. Y'Shaarj claimed most of the land, being the most powerful of the old gods. THUN, Yogg-Saron, and N'Zoth would war with each other for the rest of the world. THUN, specifically, is the old god of madness and chaos. When Aggramar of the Titans found Azeroth and reported to the Pantheon, they were horrified. They were afraid of harming Azeroth further by intervening themselves, so they created the Titanforged, which were stone and metal beings. Some of these Titanforged were given the likeness and powers of some of the Titans themselves. They were the Keepers. The Titanforged and the Keepers made war on the old gods and the Black Empire. After the Titans learned that they could not interfere directly, when Aman'thul ripped Y'Shaarj from Azeroth and caused permanent damage to the world, the Keepers and the Titanforged made war on the rest of the old gods. They purged the Aqiri and Niraki, protecting the temple city of THUN, and imprisoned it below the earth under modern-day Silithus to contain the powers of the old god, since it was too dangerous to remove from Azeroth entirely. Keeper and the Titanforged then built up a fortress around THUN's prison to protect it from intrusion better, called Ahn'Qiraj. After it was complete, many of the Titanforged Anubisaths remained there to guard the prison. The Trolls had a forbidden area of blackened stones at the base of Zandalar Mountains. When curiosity won out and discovered that these were not rocks, they were the hide of a Kith'raxi monstrosity, Kith'ix. This Kith'raxi, a creation of the old gods, rallied the Aqir and drove them to make war on Azeroth again, and created the subterranean empire, Azj'Aqir. In making this war, they invaded THUN's prison complex, Ahn'Qiraj. They enslaved the Anubisath giant guards, who they then used to make war on the Trolls and the rest of Azeroth. When Kith'ix was killed by the Amani Trolls, the Aqir sheltered in separate underground colonies, one of them being Ahn'Qiraj, calling their colony the Qiraji, and they worshipped the old gods. There they laid, dormant. Over time, knowledge of Ahn'Qiraj's existence was lost, due primarily to the inhospitable desert of Silithus that surrounded it. It was rediscovered when the night elf Fandral Staghelm began a quest to regrow the desert. He dispatched his son, Valstann, and trusted Druids to complete the task. When they came across Ahn'Qiraj, Valstann tried to explore it. His presence there accidentally roused the Qiraji back to life. It was also at this time THUN became aware of the awakened Qiraji in the complex around his prison. THUN drove the Qiraji into a murderous frenzy. High castes of its society began organizing the lesser minions, known as the Silithid. Valstann retreated from Ahn'Qiraj and created a small outpost in Silithus, watching the Qiraji grow in number and moving into the surrounding lands. He sent for help from his father, Fandral. A force of Druids, Sentinels, Keepers of the Grove, and priests clashed with the Qiraji. They managed to drive the Qiraji back to Silithus until they rallied and pushed back. These two forces would push back and forth for many months, killing many Night Elves and Qiraji. This was the War of the Shifting Sands. Eventually, the Night Elves were able to push the Qiraji back to the heart of Silithus, and just as it seemed they were going to win the war, Valstann was captured and ripped apart before Fandral's very eyes. This shattered the Archdruid, and the uncertainty was felt throughout the Night Elf ranks. The Qiraji used this opportunity to push hard into the Night Elves. In their relentless assault, they attacked the sanctum of the bronze dragonflight, the Caverns of Time. The bronze dragons, led by Anachronos, along with red, green, and blue dragons, joined the Night Elves in fighting the Qiraji. Not wanting to lose any more of their people, Fandral and the dragons devised a way to end the war quickly: lock the Qiraji inside Ahn'Qiraj. The dragons, Arygos, Caelestrasz, and Merithra, threw themselves into Ahn'Qiraj to give Anachronos and Fandral time. They gathered outside Ahn'Qiraj. Fandral had the Druids and dragons gather their power together to summon a giant barricade of stone and roots that magically closed off Ahn'Qiraj, the Qiraji, and THUN, Scarab Wall. Anachronos also forged two artifacts, the Scarab Gong and the Scepter of the Shifting Sands. The Scepter was given to Fandral. If the Scepter was hit against the Gong, it would open the gates to the Scarab Wall, in case there was ever a need to enter Ahn'Qiraj again. Valstann's death still tormented Fandral, and in his rage, he shattered the Scepter of the Shifting Sands, whose pieces were lost for the next 1,000 years. About 1,000 years later, an Orc clan, with a particular attunement to the Void and the Old Gods, the Twilight's Hammer clan, survived the Second War. Their goal was to revive the Old Gods and return the Black Empire to its former glory, to eventually bring about the Hour of Twilight, the end of all things. The leader of the Twilight's Hammer, the ogre Cho'gall, followed the call of the Old Gods to Silithus. Though the Old Gods were locked in prisons, they were still able to reach out and extend their influence in very small ways. Garona Halforcen was assassinating Twilight's Hammer clan members one by one on their journey to find their masters in southern Kalimdor. Eventually, Cho'gall was able to lure out Garona, and even though he was injured, he wove a spell to enslave her mind, like the Shadow Council did long ago. With Garona under his control, the Twilight's Hammer finally made it to Silithus, and he could sense one of their masters beneath the sands, THUN. Cho'gall had no way to reach THUN with the Scarab Wall in the way. So outside the wall, the Twilight's Hammer conducted a great ritual, which would pierce into the prison chamber that contained THUN. This ritual took the lives of many of the cultists that participated, and those who survived were left catatonic and were abandoned by the Twilight's Hammer, as they were no longer useful. Though the ritual was successful, and it shattered THUN's bonds, allowing his corruption to reach beyond the Scarab Wall, Cho'gall then left. There were other old gods he needed to break free or loosen the bonds of. THUN then ordered Cho'gall to recruit new members to the Twilight's Hammer. They would attempt to infiltrate every organization they could, every city, guild, and faction, so that the old gods could eventually call them up to begin the Hour of Twilight. THUN then awakened the Qiraji and the Silithid, who were laying dormant beneath the sands, and rallied them for war. Within Ahn'Qiraj, the prophet Scarab formed a religion around the old god. He even authored the prophecy of THUN. Beyond THUN's direct influence, the Qiraji truly believed in him. Almost immediately, the Druid outposts in Silithus fell under attack. by Silithid and Qiraji, the Horde and the Alliance came to their defense. The bronze dragon Anachronos, who fought in the War of the Shifting Sands long ago, sensed the awakening of Cthulhu, but was not yet at its full strength. Once the old god was, however, Anachronos didn't think any army in the world would be able to stop it. Cthulhu had foreseen that the dragons would again try to stop it, so Cthulhu cast a spell that would place the dragons under his control if they came too close. However, what the old god was not expecting was mortal armies. Warchief of the Horde, Thrall, and Regent Lord Bolvar Fordragon of the Alliance came to an agreement. They would combine their forces to strike at Cthulhu before he reached his full strength. Varok Saurfang, an orc veteran, was given command at this campaign against the old god. This combined force of the Horde and the Alliance was named the Might of Kalimdor. Early in the fighting, it was clear that the insectoids would win this war of attrition, so the only hope of victory was striking at Cthulhu directly, and there was no shortage of volunteers. In order to open the Scarab Wall, the Alliance and Horde scoured the continent until every single piece had been found of the Scepter of the Shifting Sands, and reassembled it. Varok Saurfang marched the Horde and Alliance to the Scarab Gate and ordered the Scepter to be used. As the gates burst open, so did the wave of Qiraji broke upon the forces of Azeroth. Countless died that day. When the bulk of the initial force of the Qiraji had been killed, the way into Ahn'Qiraj had been opened. Before Cthulhu could rally another attack, Varok ordered a dual attack on Cthulhu's forces. One side would raid the ruins of Ahn'Qiraj, attacking the bulk of the Qiraji army. Knowing that this would be a fierce battle, he deployed his most elite Horde champions to do the fighting, knowing they could endure such a brutal battle. While the Horde held the line, the Alliance would storm Ahn'Qiraj itself to face the insectoids within and the old god. They succeeded, fighting off Cthulhu's whisperings, and killed Cthulhu. Nobody involved understood the magnitude of what they had done, but they'd killed an old god. They did not understand how impossible the task was, how strong they were, and how lucky they were that they were able to defeat Cthulhu before he was at full power. Cthulhu's eye was given to the red dragon Caelestrasz, and this victory acted as a warning to the other old gods. When mortals joined forces, they could defeat even the old gods. Cho'gall couldn't even believe that mortals possessed this type of strength. So, Cho'gall made it so the Horde and Alliance would never be able to unite again, or at least tried, because if they did, they could defeat anything. At some point, while Brann Bronzebeard was exploring Ahn'Qiraj, he lost the base of Ahn'Qiraj, the great staff of the Guardian. It was discovered that it was within the remains of Cthulhu, and Garona Halforcen retrieved it, so it could be remade and given to Med'an. Later on, while the Lich King launched his attacks on Stormwind and Aggramar, while the Horde and Alliance were distracted, Cho'gall returned to Ahn'Qiraj. He was attempting to resurrect his old master, Cthulhu. Cthulhu's essence empowered Cho'gall, making him somewhat monstrous. Med'an, the powerful orc mage, used his power of the new Council of Tirisfal to topple Ahn'Qiraj on top of Cho'gall and stopped the ritual. Arthas, as the Lich King, would go on to cite Azeroth barely being able to defeat apocalyptic dangers like the Burning Legion and Cthulhu to be his reason he wished to take over the world with the Scourge, so that Azeroth would always stand united against threats, as mindless undead, rather than possibly not united and being destroyed because of it. When Yogg-Saron's bonds were loosened by Cho'gall, he took the lessons learned from the defeat of Cthulhu to heart. Yogg-Saron learned to bide his time, rather than rush and attack. He used this corrupt servant, Keeper, Loken, to use the Forge of Wills to create new generations of Earthen and Vrykul, all loyal to Yogg-Saron. Before he made his move, he would make a powerful army first. So hope you enjoyed the video and learned a little bit more about Cthulhu. If you liked it, you should like and subscribe, and check me out on other social medias. Links are above me and in the description, and especially come check out the stream on Twitch and join the community on Discord. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.